Welcome to Property Showcase, the podcast that brings you closer to the service providers that can inform your decisions about how you buy, manage and research top investment opportunities. Be informed and become a better investor with Property Showcase.
Well, g'day and welcome back everyone to another segment of the Property Showcase. I'm the host, your partnerships manager here at Smart Property Investment, Tom Gilmore. And today I'm joined by a really interesting gentleman actually. And I say this in the sense of through this, we hear a lot from buyers, agents and brokers and prop techs, but often what we don't really get to see is a bit of a point of difference. And today I'm joined by a gentleman by the name of Jack Bird. He's the director of the Cameron Bird Group and he's a close friend of ours up in the state of Queensland. And I've brought Jack in today to really sort of open up our minds, so to speak, to give investors a bit more of a point of difference. And perhaps, people who are tuning into this right now will have a lot to say off the back of this podcast. You might agree, you might disagree. But at the same time, I think this podcast will certainly open your mind in terms of different directions and different strategies that you might go down. Jack, how are you going?
Thanks, Tom. Very well, mate. Thanks for having me on your show.
No problem at all, mate. Look, Jack, just to sort of kick things off, could you give everyone just listening now a bit more, I suppose, clarity on terms of who you are, what you do, what is your point of difference, and give us a bit more of a scope?
Most certainly. So, I'm the director of the Cameron Bird Group. A lot of listeners may have heard of us in the past. We've been in business now for 42 years, and I took the business over from my father, David Bird, who originally founded the company back in 1978. So we've been around for a long, long time. We specialise in a niche market. We specialise in the Southeast Queensland property market, and we try and focus more so on regional locations of Southeast Queensland. So that can be the Sunshine Coast, the Moreton Bay region, the growth corridor between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. I guess, Southeast Queensland is a large area, but we try and really focus on, high growth areas of Southeast Queensland.
So, Jack, given the topic is the point of difference, why is it so important that you think investors should be looking at places like Southeast Queensland? Of course, you've been working in that area now for God knows how many years. You probably know it better than anyone else. Could you just describe to us why this is so important?
Yeah, I think Southeast Queensland moving forward, there's a lot of demand at the moment, Tom, from investors and owner-occupiers that are looking for affordability and lifestyle. There's a lot of people, that are moving up from areas like New South Wales and Victoria, and they're looking for a lifestyle. They're looking for affordability. And I think that's probably one of the key drivers for Southeast Queensland is exactly those two things, affordability and lifestyle. When you have a look at areas like the Sunshine Coast, it's a very desirable place to live. And coming out of COVID, I think, a lot of people that I'm talking to, they're all saying the same thing. Most of my investors do come from Victoria and New South Wales. A lot of them are saying the same thing. They're saying, we know people that are planning on moving up to Southeast Queensland. They're very interested in the Sunshine Coast. They're interested in the Gold Coast. So, I think we're in for some interesting times ahead. I really do.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there, Jack. I actually tell myself every single year that I'm going to be moving up to that area of Australia, and I'm still waiting my turn. It still hasn't happened yet, but, fingers crossed next year that might happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was hoping that perhaps now you could sort of describe the in-depth, what the process is that investors go through with you when they're acquiring, essentially acquiring their property.
Yeah, sure. So what I've learned over the years, Tom, is that every investor is different. Every investor has a different criteria. Every investor has a different borrowing capacity. So what we try and do is we really try and laser focus on that investor's criteria and those needs and sit down with the investor or over the phone via Zoom and just, really look at where they're at with their portfolio, whether they're a first-time investor, whether they're a seasoned investor. And I guess, another thing that I've learned over the years as well, Tom, is that there's no rules in real estate, so there's fundamentals, definitely there's fundamentals behind investment properties and investing in real estate, but there's no rules as such. So, a lot of our investors, as I say, they've got, different criteria that they like certain properties, they dislike certain properties. I've got some investors there that will only buy apartments. They don't want house and land. Then I've got other investors that absolutely dislike apartments and only want to buy house and land packages. I've got quite a lot of investors that will only purchase new properties. Then on the other side, I've got investors that only want established properties. So I guess there really is a very much a mixed bag of investors out there. And we try and focus on everybody's needs and requirements, I guess. So Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, given how long you've worked in the game now, I imagine you've probably got some pretty good stats and data around, who is wanting more new compared to, house and lands
Definitely.
to older style properties as well. I mean, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I'm sure
No.
everyone listening would like to know, do you see the demand for new increasing or decreasing?
I see the demand for new properties increasing. More and more investors that I talk to, they're looking for depreciation benefits. There's a lot of bonuses behind investing in new properties, and some of those are, builders' warranties, less maintenance costs. At the end of the day, from a tenancy perspective, people are going to want to live in a new property, more so than an older property. But we try and focus on, areas where, there's high demand for owner occupiers as well. I guess, for us, it's about having an exit strategy for the investor. So, high growth areas where there's a really good mix of owner occupiers and investors as well. So that, when the investor wants to sell that property, there's a good chance that it's going to be sold to an owner occupier. Because, well, I guess when we look at it, 70% of the market is owner occupiers, and then 30% of the market is probably investors, I guess so. But yeah, to answer the question, I think, there's certainly a demand there for new properties, and there's a lot of benefits behind purchasing new properties.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Well, I'd like to sort of paint a picture here again with the whole point of difference. What do you think let's consider the fact that an investor listening right now is, would like to, acquire your services or get in touch with you, in terms of where they are at in their portfolio. And I think this is critical to every investor, whether they be, a first-time investor or a first-time buyer to, I don't know, maybe they got 5 in their portfolio already. How do you sort of intervene might be a strong word, but how do you then go on and take that form? So if you're talking to me right now, I've got 3 properties in my portfolio. Do you take into account how that sort of affects investments with yourself or the properties that you acquire?
Yeah, for sure. I guess, as I said earlier in the podcast, mate, a lot of investors have different requirements or different criterias. And I think, one of the key strategies behind a good property portfolio is diversification and having a good mix of, different types of properties in different locations as well. But, we'll sit down together and really have a close look at what you currently own. Are they cash flow positive? Are they neutrally geared? Are they negatively geared? I think, it's so important for investors to have a diverse portfolio where, capital growth is priority, but cash flows are very important as well. So if you've got properties in your portfolio, Tom, where, they're in high growth locations, but they're costing you a lot of money, maybe it's time to, diversify a little bit as well and look at, some cash flow positive properties to help with serviceability, to continue to grow your portfolio. Yeah, I think it's really important to have a diverse portfolio and have properties in different locations and not necessarily have all your eggs in, one property type or your eggs in the one state. I think it's really important to, spread the properties around. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And to anyone listening, if you do also agree with Jack's sentiment there, if you wanted to get in touch with Jack, you can find him all across the Smart Property Investment website currently. If you want to log on there, www.smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. You can also tune into a special episode we did on the Smart Property Investment show as well on our other podcast there if you want to tune into Jack and Phil having a listen there. Jack, how are other ways that people can get in touch with you as well?
Yeah, most certainly. So my recommendation is to check out our website, which is www.cameronbird.com.au. You can sign up there for free. We've also got some free downloads there. We've got an investment property calculator that my father designed back in the 90s, which we update every year with the latest tax rates. We have our own accountants go over it and check for accuracy. But that's a really good investor tool for any property investor that's, looking to purchase, or if, they can run their cash flows on properties that they currently own. But yeah, it's a really good investor tool that it's very simple to use, and it gives you a very concise outcome of your cash flows before and after tax. So we've also just completed a new Sunshine Coast infrastructure report, which is a really good guide for property investors and what's actually happening there on the Sunshine Coast and why you should be looking at that market. So yeah, head across to www.cameronbird.com.au, sign up for free. We're also on all the social platforms as well, so Facebook. But if you want to pick up the phone and give me a call, I'm always available. And the best contact number is 07 3871 2500.
Good stuff, mate. I'm going to have to get my hands on that report, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's very beneficial for investors, and it's a free download. So yeah, please check it out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you kindly.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.